A workaholic guy finally calls it quits, but before he could quit, he fell in love with his boss. The only solution, my friends said, was men. We were at the pub and I'd just finished mourning another day at the office when my friends confidently declared that I needed a man. Dating one would be a preferable choice, but a one-night stand didn't sound all that bad either. More time to forget about my miserable, uneventful life, they claimed. I clutched my glass tighter and passionately glared at them. I was drunk, my hair was messy, and I was the shortest in the group, so the glare definitely didn't come out as threatening as I hoped it would. But I relayed my message anyway. "I don't need a man," I passionately declared. "What do you need then, Keith?" one of my friends, Alex, chimed in. "I just need to be freed from the evil clutches of money-hungry, corporate pig-like warlords." I stopped and pointed a finger in the air. "In fact, do you know what my boss reminds me of? You remember that ugly pig from Angry Birds? It's actually nuts how similar they are." Seconds later, I mused some more on this new comparison. "Hey," Alex said some moments later, "what about that guy?" He pointed at one in particular and slapped my hand away before I could pour myself another glass. "You need to be sober to get through with this idea, dude. He's handsome, too." I groaned a little, but followed his direction, and that's how I ended up spending another of my nights with another stranger. I wouldn't say it was bad, but any such experience didn't make waking up the next day any easier. When I woke up in the morning, I watched the man dress up and leave. When I was sure he'd left, I pulled the comforters over myself and returned to sleep. No use waking up before 10 on a Sunday. I woke up next to 10 missed calls from my mother and one from my dad. I decided to call my dad first. Usually my weekend trouble started after missing a call from my dad. He said he was wondering if I'd come to visit them. I almost replied that I didn't want to and that I'd rather spend my entire day crying over how messed up my life was, but I promised that I'd be there by the afternoon. When it was done, I sighed and lay awake on my bed. To think that I'd be in the office tomorrow was dreadful enough. My day at my parents' was just like any other, gratifying before dreadful. Right after appreciating how well I was handling my professional life, they wondered if I'd found myself a boyfriend. After all, I couldn't be both 31 and miserable all alone. I needed to find someone to be sad with, they said. I looked at them for a straight minute, wondering if I should inform them of my plans for my job, but they seemed too eager to know more about personal details, and I didn't want to ruin their Sunday by announcing that I was on my way to resign from my job. Even though I had 100 valid reasons why I wanted to do that, still, I kept my mouth shut and gave them a half-shaky grin. "Not yet," I replied, "but the search is on." "We know someone," my mom said. "His name's Kenny, and he's our neighbor's son. Definitely your type." "What's his type anyway?" my dad chimed in. My mom shrugged. I'd faded into the background. "Taller than himself, big. You like big men, don't you, Keith? He's handsome and hot. Keith, he's so kind that he even promised to mow our lawn for free. You should see him then, Keith." She grinned, and my dad agreed. 5 minutes later, I heard the sounds. I looked out of the window to find a tall and broad man actually working on my parents' lawn. He was shirtless. I swallowed in shame because I did in fact find that attractive. It was wonderful how glorious he looked. I turned to my parents and they shrugged. What could be done? A hot man was a hot man anyway. That's how I ended up sleeping with Kenny, my parents' neighbor's son, on Sunday. Sure, my parents didn't mean that when they introduced me to him, but it couldn't be helped. That same night. "How come you say you don't have any passion?" Kenny asked. "With my mouth," I answered lamely. I was exhausted. Kenny had done a number on me and I wanted to sleep. The last thing I wanted was another conversation. Kenny smiled. "You're young. Why have you given up so early?" "What do you mean? I haven't given up." He pointed in the distance. I knew what he was talking about. "I would love to be your friend, Keith, and when we do become friends, I hope you can serenade me with a song on my birthday." Anxiety seemed to slowly come alive in my toes. I curled them. "Go away, I need to sleep. I have work tomorrow." I purposely kept my eyes outside the window. It was blowing softly, and yet I could feel the coolness in the winds. A little out of line, and I would fall sick. I always had a poor constitution. "All right, I'll leave." I saw him placing something on my bedside table. "Here's my number, in case you want to do this again, or if you need someone to talk to." Then he left. 10 minutes after that, I quickly got up from my bed, grabbed the offending and dirty guitar from the corner of my room, practically ran to my basement and threw it somewhere in the dark. It landed on something soft, so I knew I hadn't done too much damage to the instrument. I knew, however, that I had done some damage to myself. When I crawled into my bed, I thought nothing could make this day any worse, but then I received a message in the unofficial Miserable Peasants, a stupid unofficial group chat for our department, that Our department had a new boss. His name was Finn Murphy, and he was joining from tomorrow. Oh, and the company was throwing him a party on Tuesday evening, and all of us were invited. So, cheers everyone. As much as free food excited me, I couldn't help but groan. Man, I hated social gatherings so damn much. The next day. Finn was a tall man. From the very first glance, I knew he came from a good family. His hair was nice, and so was his suit. His hands were perfectly manicured, and his face was clean-shaved. He looked friendly, but rich. So, by that logic, being friendly with him needed some nerve. One didn't just go to a rich person and tell them they looked like a rich person. That would sound stupid. However, it wasn't until he stopped beside me during mid-speech that I inhaled his cologne. It was rich, but spicy. Even without an accompanying thought, I knew I wanted to kiss him, but I held the thought for now. I still had my resignation letter to prepare. Once that was done, I was sure to do something. Finn finished his speech and didn't move away from my side. I could feel the burning shame in me. Everyone was staring at me. Why was he doing this? So, Finn said with a smile, how about you guys give me some self-intro? What are we, school children? I sure as hell heard some groans. Come on, guys, just tidbits, so I can get to know you and what you do here. How about we begin from you? He stopped and turned to me. Unconsciously, I calculated the few inches he had on me. Hell, I really wanted to kiss him. Keith Simpson, I miserably answered. My energy was done for. It was only morning. Keith, yes, he smiled, a charming little thing. How about we begin with you? By the time the clock hit 3, I had my resignation letter prepared. All I had left to do was send it to the manager, and my fate would be sealed after that. With shaking fingers, I sent a copy to my parents and didn't say anything else. I didn't have any doubts that I wanted to get out of this dreadful place, yet I couldn't help but be doubtful. It was this doubt that I carried with me after the office hours. It was predicted yesterday that it would be rainy today, and I could see that it was drizzling. I sighed. I knew it was going to be a mess commuting, and I was right. Some 25 minutes into the traffic, I received a text from my dad. It was a simple question, and yet I couldn't stop the onslaught of tears that spilled from my eyes. Are you alright, son? My dad had asked. The world ahead of me was a blurry mess after that. I tried to stop the tears, but it didn't seem to come to an end. There was a sob stuck somewhere in my throat, and I was sure that if anyone knew what I was going through, they would have either steered clear of my way or asked me to park somewhere safe to let it all out. Despite knowing how exhausted I'd be at the end of it, I drove on until I could find a silent enough corner to park. I did, and broke down into tears. My dad had asked if I was doing alright, and I was very close to informing him that I wasn't. My life at the office sucked. I didn't eat until my body screamed in protest, and I'd gotten so thin, it made sense why my parents and grandparents always complained about my frame. And I drank a lot. I would probably return home and drink again, but most of all, it was hard spending even an hour in the office. Each hour that I spent in that office, I was reminded how much I missed holding my guitar in my arms, and how little time, passion, and energy I had left in me to actually do it. 20 minutes later, my phone started ringing. It was my dad calling, and I was immediately reminded that I was their only child. Obviously, they were scared I'd do something stupid. I wiped my tears and drank a chunk of my water before I picked up his call. My eyes were less blurry now, so I could see the cars silently passing by. Hey, Dad, I said soullessly and began our conversation. Some 7 minutes into our conversation, I saw a car smoothly driving past before it came to a sudden stop. I assumed it was someone like me, but in a more expensive car. But then, they reversed the car and it stopped in front of mine. Was I going to get kidnapped now? Is that what my life had come to? But then a man got out of the car, and I thought, oh, it was Finn Murphy. He softly tapped on the window and dipped down to stare at me. He waved a hello. I bid my dad a farewell and rolled my window down. I was confused, but Finn didn't really seem to catch that. Hey, he said, and ran a hand through his hair. Hi, I replied. Was I supposed to call him sir or boss? I just kept my mouth shut. That was office etiquette, and we weren't in the office. I was driving by, and I saw you. Are you okay? He asked, and pointed at my red eyes and tears-soaked cheeks. I hadn't realized I was crying while talking to my dad. I blushed and grabbed a napkin to wipe them away. Sorry, I said, and cleared my throat. My voice sounded croaky. He sympathetically smiled. Bad breakup? No, I replied. My dad. Not that he's hurt me or anything. Right, he said, and looked around us. Care for a coffee? I'm sorry. I'm new here, so I thought maybe I'd get to know the place better this way. I've lived most of my life in Ireland. Everything is new here. Sure, I replied. I glowered. What the hell? Fraternizing with the boss outside of the working hours? No one was as embarrassing as me. Only if you want to, Finn said. He'd given me an out, and I felt dispirited. He probably proposed the idea to make sure I wasn't alone during this time, and I probably should have taken this opportunity to get to know him better. After all, I still wanted to kiss him. But the emotions felt heavy on my shoulders, and I couldn't help but utter the words that I knew I'd regret later. Maybe a next time? I cringed as I said that. That sounds splendid, he replied with a smile. I smiled and nodded. Have fun, I said. With you, whenever you want to go out, that is. I sucked on my bottom lip. Sure thing, Finn. Bye, Keith. The next day. The next morning arrived quicker than I'd anticipated. All of us were supposed to dress nice, but formally. I only had one suit with me, and I'd bought it years ago. It used to fit me just nicely, but now it looked big on me. I'd lost weight, and this should be enough proof. Even so, I pulled it on, put some gel in my hair, and combed it. I couldn't recall the last time I'd done this for the office. I probably wouldn't have done it that day either, if not for the sudden meeting with Finn. He was nicer than I'd imagined. Sure, I'd only known him for a day, but things seemed easy with him. My resignation letter was still sitting in my laptop, but I knew what I needed to do before finally sending it to my manager. The day passed on just like any other day. I got 2 meetings with Finn, and got to see him several more times after that. The evening finally arrived, and all of us were huddled in the common area. It was time to officially welcome Finn Murphy to our department. After some polite greetings and reintroductions, we were given our share of snacks. It was heavy, and there was no solid food. I thought I could have missed this evening without losing a lot, but then Finn came walking towards me and asked how I was returning home. I answered that I had my car with me. He frowned and nodded his head. He then said that he would have to book a cab. His car was given for maintenance. I thought of taking that as a hint. It was a do-or-die situation for me. If things worked out, I would think about staying here for a little more. If not, then the resignation letter was always at my service. I proposed to him the idea that I could drive him home. He smiled and said that would be nice of me. I expected the rest of the evening to pass on just as quickly and calmly, but 2 hours later, on our way to Finn's place, we nearly got into an accident. It wasn't my fault, we weren't drunk, and we were in our lane, but the evening rush always made people impatient, and our almost accident was a result of that. Finn and I sat in our respective seats in silence. It wasn't too bad, but the other driver had apologized profusely and ran away from the scene. It was just Finn and I left to deal with the fact that we could have seriously gotten injured over some other driver's careless mistake. That was, Finn said, his breath trembled. Insane, I replied. I'd fantasized about dying several times, but not in this way. Not in a way that I'd have to take guilt with me. I know, trust me. Gave me one hell of a shock. Are you okay? I couldn't help but ask. I'm grand, he replied, and you? Uh-huh. My side of the car was slightly damaged. Had the car hit us a little more, however, it would have been a real mess. Okay, I think? Are you hurt? He asked again. No, I think I'm okay. He nodded and grabbed his bag. He gave me a bottle of water and said that I should drink it. I didn't even have the energy to ask him the same. I grabbed the bottle and, for some reason, kissed him on his mouth. I wasn't sure why I'd done that, but when Finn kissed me back, I thought the reason didn't really matter at all. A few days later. It was Saturday, and Finn was coming over to my place. I'd welcomed him for whatever terrible reason, and now I was freaking out. Yesterday, I had returned home and looked at the mess in my home and thought, I'll just clean this all up tomorrow, bake some dessert for the evening in the afternoon, and light some candles in the evening for Finn. That sounded like a full-fledged plan to me, but that would have worked only if I'd woken up on time. I didn't. I woke up around 11 in the morning and bathed by 12. I started cleaning the home around 1, and by the time I was done, it was past 4. It meant that I hadn't baked anything for the evening. The more I realized that, the more anxiety seemed to make a home in me. Finn was supposed to arrive by 7 in the evening. I had less than 3 hours. The very idea that I always ended up messing things up didn't help my case. By the time Finn arrived at my place, I'd done nothing. I heard the doorbell ringing and heard a nervous shuffle outside my door, but I couldn't really bring myself to move. I heard the doorbell ring again and tears of frustration gathered in my eyes. What the hell? Finn called, and I decided I couldn't just ruin his day like this. At least I could go and tell him that we could reschedule, if that worked out for him. I wiped my tear-soaked face and dragged myself to the door. Hey, are you alright? I nodded. I didn't trust myself with words. He sighed. Can I come in? I nodded and took the flowers that he'd brought for me. I felt ashamed now. All the terrible excuses I prepared until now sounded just that, mere half-assed excuses. I was worried that Finn would think I didn't want him around. Finn seemed to have noticed the state of my kitchen. He turned to me and asked me if I wanted some help. I replied that I didn't know what I wanted to make. We settled on making some Irish pancakes. It was called box tie. Finn had brought me some wine with him, so that was our dinner. "It's easy," he said. "Mash some potatoes, will ya?" I wiped my face with the back of my hand and washed my hands. "Yes?" Finn gently smiled. "Maybe next time you can make it for me?" "I can," I replied. "Well then, let's learn, shall we?" Date was cancelled. It was just a normal night between us, except we kissed and slept together. Then somewhere around 11, he asked what my plans were. "What?" I asked, a little sleepy now. I didn't want to have this dreadful conversation with him on a night like this, but I assumed deep down I did want someone to hear out my worries. I don't have any plans, honestly." "No?" he asked. I had my head on his chest, so I shook it to the best of my ability. "I don't know." He ran a careful hand through my hair. "You know I liked you the moment I first saw you," he said suddenly and softly. I knew that already. Finn didn't know how to play subtle. I guess I found that charming in some way. "Oh," I replied. He hummed. "I wanted to kiss you the second I saw you." "Cheers. It was the same for me." I perched my chin on his chest and looked into his eyes. I was sleepy, so my look probably came out more innocent than I was hoping for. "You know that I want to leave the company, right?" He gave a small chuckle. "Why? Is it 'cause of me?" "No," I answered, not really understanding what he found so amusing about it. "I just can't stand coming to that office. Every morning before stepping into the building, I stare at that giant building and wonder, what the heck am I still doing here? This isn't how I imagined my adult life to be. It's scary how I have to adjust to their needs more than my own. It's kind of depressing, honestly." "So, you want to give up?" he asked. "I don't have any other solution. I need to get out of here." "Have you looked at other places?" I nodded my head and hugged him again. "There's this one, it seems nice. Maybe I'll leave, I don't know." I made some fingers on his bare chest. "Are you not mad?" "Mad about what?" "You're like my boss. I'm telling you right to your face that I'm gonna leave soon." "There's really nothing to be mad about. We all get frustrated by our jobs at some point. It's only a natural response. If I were in your place, I'd probably have done the same." He removed himself from under me and laid down next to me. He looked at me a little curiously. So kissing me and sleeping with me wasn't to get some work favors? I was slightly offended, but I knew the question wasn't coming from him. It had only been a few days since he joined the company, and yet we were already so close. One of my colleagues nearly caught us kissing yesterday, but even that wasn't as bad. If she would have seen me with my hand down Finn's pants, oh, that would have ended horribly. Obviously, there were rumors around my department. I placed my head on my stretched out arm and mapped out the details of his face. He was such a handsome man. Sometimes in the last few days that we spent kissing each other at the first chance we got, I wondered if he found me as interesting as I found him. He was Irish, he had things to tell me that I didn't know, he told me about experiences and thoughts that I'd never heard before. One time, 2 days ago, he'd brought me to a bookstore and looked for books and Irish novelists. He'd point at one name and tell me about them. It was interesting how passionate he was about it. It made sense why Irish literature was so appreciated. "I don't need any work favors, Finn," I replied. "I just want you to make it easy for me to leave." His smile dropped for a moment. "Leave what?" I wondered if he was thinking of the worst. I brought a hand and rubbed the furrow between his brows. Worry wasn't a good look on him. "Leave the company." "Oh," he said and laughed. "Good. Maybe I don't want you to go." "Right." I drawled out the word. A few days later. "What are you most passionate about?" Finn asked. I was at his place and we were cooking dinner. It was past 8. In the last few days, we'd spent plenty of time together, enough that my parents complained that I'd forgotten all about them. I felt guilty. I supposed I needed to show them my face after dropping the bombshell on them without a warning. They deserved that, at the very least, for staying with me through all of my moody tantrums. At Finn's question, I immediately thought back to the guitar I'd thrown away in my basement out of sheer guilt, embarrassment, and anger. I hadn't touched it in years, and not once after I started out at my current job. "I don't know," I answered. Finn looked at me with a small smile. "Liar." I gave a small laugh. It sounded natural to my ears. "Why would you say that?" "Because everyone's passionate about something, Keith. You lie when you say you've nothing that makes you happy." I swallowed. "I don't. Maybe I'm just an exception." "Liar," he said. "But I shall make my due efforts so that you feel comfortable to share your likes with me." He leaned against the kitchen counter. "I'd be honored to know what makes you feel life's worth it." I looked around his place. "You have a nice place." He shrugged. "My parents' money, honestly." I laughed at his bluntness. "What? You've got to accept your privileges, no shame in that." "Right," I replied, impressed at his openness and honesty. I mean, they were one of the 2 reasons I was able to keep up with my passion. And what's the other one? I asked, and grabbed the plates he'd made for us. Me. Myself. He smiled down at me. On the Sunday of the same week, I opened my basement door, switched on the light, and stared long and hard at my guitar lying alone and miserable in the dust. Even when I tried to remember it, I couldn't recall the last time I touched it out of curiosity. I touched it enough times with frustration, given my lack of time and energy to spend on it, but not out of curiosity in recent times. I stared at it in silence, wondering if I had the energy to even grab it. I didn't. I switched off the light, locked the basement, and walked out of there with heavy steps. Oh, how much I hated being hopeless. It reminded me of my younger age, when I'd see adults walking around me and complaining about one thing or the other. Each time I would wonder why they didn't do something instead of whining all day. I suppose I had the answer now. I knew how to unwind myself, but I still didn't see the point. After all, I would have to return to the same miserable routine even if I played my guitar, so it seemed pointless, yet I couldn't ignore the tinge of sadness in my heart. I missed the feeling, and that was the truth. My dad asked if I could help him with gardening, and I said I was okay with it. I'd rather rest and sleep the day away, but Dad was, well, Dad. You didn't say anything, he said. About what? I asked, and kneeled beside him with the sapling. If things are working out with Kenny, you did say you're a sweet boy. Uh-huh. I hadn't met Kenny after that one night. We texted sometimes, but that was it. There's nothing between us. Oh, my dad replied. But don't worry about me, Dad. I've actually met a guy. Really? He asked, and now sounding far more energetic. What's his name? I wondered if I should tell him. How would he take it if I said I was dating my boss? Would that be flattering to know, or weird? Finn, I answered, and did a terrible task at pulling down my sleeves. Finn had left some marks on my wrists, and it would be better if Dad didn't notice. He's at my company. A colleague? Boss, I murmured. I suppose he's a good man? Then he pointedly looked at my covered wrists. I groaned in embarrassment. Why did parents have to notice everything? Dad? What? He laughed and returned to his work. Bring him to meet us, will ya? Yes, of course. Would you come with me? Finn asked. For the night, please? We were in the parking lot. It was past 7, and we were less likely to find many people here. But I could still hear the chitter-chattering of a few passerby. I wondered if Finn cared enough about them, or the fact that we were in a public place. Remove your hand and I shall tell you, I told him, and grabbed his arm from my waist. It was highly inconvenient how much influence he had over me. If he said he wanted to sleep with me right now in his car, I wouldn't dismiss the idea. He sighed and placed both hands beside my hips. He dropped his head on my shoulder. I really want to show you something, he said. And I'm sure that it's not your bed? I mean, that's one of them, sure, but there's something else. He pulled his head back to stare at me. I really want you to hear that. Hear? I repeated. He nodded, yup. And that was how I found myself sitting on Finn's bed and him sitting on one of his many cushioned chairs with a guitar in his lap. He was tapping it nervously and I was sitting there anxiously. I knew what I was freaking out about. I knew exactly why I could feel an oncoming headache. Finn seemed oblivious to my internal struggle. Despite the nervousness, I could notice the excitement thrumming in his fingers and on his face. His face was literally brimming with happiness. I could feel all of it, mostly because I was once familiar with those emotions. You wrote that for me? I asked. He nodded. I remember you were sleeping next to me in the moonlight. It looked so pretty on you. I couldn't help thinking about some tunes and some words, and then I worked over them. This is what I made. Did you like it? He was still nervously scratching the guitar. I rarely saw this side of him. I nodded. I don't know how to express it, but it was gorgeous, Finn. Yeah? He asked and placed the guitar on the couch. He crawled on the bed with me. I can make better tunes, though. Better than this. Just give me a chance. I'm sure you can, I replied and ran a hand through his hair. My fingers were trembling, and at this moment, I was physically hurting at the thought of holding my guitar. How nice it would feel to create my own music. Keith, he said. Yeah? Are you alright? Before I could answer, he brought a hand to my face to wipe away the tears. I hadn't even noticed them. What makes you happy, Keith? I broke down into tears and hugged him. A few days later. What makes you happy? Finn asked. Spending time with my parents made me happy. Being at the office made me miserable, so I knew anything work-related was out of the picture. Being with Finn, however, also made me happy. It didn't matter where I met him. It could be out of the office or in the office, and I'd be happy with him. Even though we were at a very early stage of our relationship, I still felt really happy with him. In fact, the more time I spent with him, the more possible sharing my feelings seemed. So doing anything and nothing with him made me happy. But what else made me happy? On Saturday, I opened my basement again and looked at my guitar. It was dusty, and I could only hope the strings were well. Tentatively, I picked it up and cleaned it with a cleaning cloth. My fingers shook with the weight of it, as if I had forgotten what it felt to hold my happiness. I locked the basement and returned to my room. I was alone, and yet not. I didn't get anything right. It had been years. When I played a tune from my memory, it sounded so out of whack that I cringed and laughed in embarrassment. Thank God Finn wasn't here to witness this mess. For the next hour, I did a poor job at recreating tunes from my memory. Most didn't work, and some partially worked, but when I placed it beside me and lay down next to it, it felt like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad after all. A long drive? I repeated Finn's words. We can do some literary discourse, Finn. Why does anyone need to go on a long drive? Because it's good and romantic. I groaned and dropped my entire weight on him. Can we do stuff in your car? He raised an eyebrow at me and cheekily smiled. We can if you want. I happily grinned. I also want to play you some guitar. He grabbed me around my waist. You play guitar? He asked. I couldn't help but nod with a grin. You once asked what makes me happy. And it's a guitar, he said. I nodded again. Yes, Finn. He looked happy. We can do that, yeah. I made a few shapes on his chest. I also want to leave the company. He ran a hand through my hair. I earn enough for both of us. You can take your time. Then he rubbed his fingers on my head. When the long drive is done, we can start on it. Next weekend? Definitely. 2 weeks later, I asked Finn if he wanted to meet my parents. He seemed nervous, but said he would very much like to do so. When I finally brought him to my parents, they immediately agreed that he looked like a nice guy. His Irish mannerisms seemed to charm the heck out of my parents. Thank God it was a mutual feeling. Finn and I are still steady in our relationship, if it could be called one. We haven't named it yet, but we don't act like boyfriends all the time, so what can one say? I left the company a month later and shifted to Finn's place. In the meantime, I started looking for more options, though only enough that I'd be able to tolerate and manage. I still play my guitar, and it seems to work fine. I'm not sure why I wasted so many years of my life being afraid. The end. Keith seems to have reignited his passion. What about you? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force.